Race for the title. Here we go. As we know, 2 away games, Everton, West Ham back-to-back. Then Spurs before Villa for Liverpool. Gary, have we seen a Liverpool side today that can win the title still?
Well, it's got a chance, and I think that you mentioned it, I think, earlier on in the show. Being 4 points ahead before City play again is huge. Applying pressure, building some... I mean, look, Jurgen Klopp's job is to try and win the title this season, but also I think for these players, a lot of them at Liverpool are new. So they're answering the question around, can they live in a title race? Can they live with Manchester City? Because there's next season to think about as well when a new manager comes in. But they've got a chance. I mean, they're not the favourites by any stretch of the imagination. We think City will do it. Last week when we left the Emirates and Liverpool had lost and Arsenal had lost, we felt a little deflated that the 3-horse race wasn't to be. But I feel a little bit more confident about it because Arsenal and Liverpool have done their jobs this weekend.
I think what you've just said is interesting there because this is Jurgen Klopp's last season. I think if Jurgen Klopp was staying, he wasn't moving on, we'd be saying, no matter what happens here for Liverpool, it's been a great season and he can build on this next season. Yeah, it's almost like starting the new team. They can add maybe 1 or 2 players because I still think they are behind City. I don't think at any stage this season I've believed Liverpool would win the league. But because it's Klopp's last season, it almost feels like you've got to send Klopp out with the league, and it almost feels like a bigger disappointment than it probably is if he wasn't, really, because it's the end of an era. Even though you're mentioning new players coming in, it is the end of an era in terms of the manager. So I think that's why it feels maybe a little bit more pressured in some ways.
It's all ifs and buts, of course, at this stage. If we just put the graphic back up again just for a second, please. Thank you. Just to show the goal difference point that Trent Alexander-Arnold was referencing. If Arsenal were to drop away, you see how tight it gets, Louis, between Liverpool and Manchester City. Goal difference could be vital, couldn't it?
It is. It's always small details, and those players know that. They understand the game. The managers always think about those little elements. That's for sure that they have players who can score goals, especially when I think teams are a bit tired, not as inspired. So it's a very, very important point. So let's see.
There's a standout game there, and it's Manchester City going to Tottenham in the last week. Arsenal and Liverpool have got to be thinking, get to that game. Get to that game where they're in front. Get to that game. Put the pressure on City to have to win the last 2 games, one of them being Tottenham away. And that's the job of Arsenal and Liverpool. They gave up the sort of role, if you like, of being in control last weekend. They've got to try and sort of get to that game now in their minds. Obviously, there's games to go before that, but that's, I think, the pressure they've got to try and apply.